Of my good friend and colleague Jason Cooper, where we talk all things, everything about the soft and system side to sales. Hello, Jason. How are we doing?
Yeah, good. Very good today.
Yeah, you sure
And
you're not lying?
sorry?
You sure you're not lying? I'm only joking.
No, I'm not feeling so good today. No,
Ah,
but this is all about rapport with
yeah,
people. And sometimes you can get disconnect if you
yeah.
don't build that connection with someone. Because people like themselves. And when you're in sales or business of any sort, especially sales, rapport with that other person is just so essential. And whether you can be taught this or not, I don't know, but there are some things that you should be doing to connect right with the other person. And that rapport, like we were chatting beforehand, that we're in line and we're in rapport because we get on with each other. We're both into similar sorts of thing. So there's a connection there. So
Mm.
when you're speaking with your customers, you have to find something that is connected to the other person. And it is about the other person.
It's always, and I'm glad you said that, Jason, because it's always about the other person. It's never about you. And like, so going back to where we should start building rapport, like, rapport doesn't start when you get to sale, Jason.
Yep.
Rapport starts from the very first touch point or contact point, whether it's email, phone, or in person with that person, whether it's at a
Hmm.
networking event or it's part of a sales campaign. Rapport starts there, Jason, and it's so important to get that. And you're right, like, it takes time to build rapport, Jason, but you have to go on that journey. And as you said, like, for some people it's very natural, but for, like, it cannot be learned. I don't know, like, it's a really good question, Jason, because the way I always think, and I always say this, is like, I always, when you're building relationships with people, remember,
Yep.
it's relationships. If you're working with your family or your friends, you are always other people centered. You are
Hmm.
looking at, you just said, you're looking out for them. You have to be the same. It's not about you, it's about them always. And that has to start from day one.
I think when you actually make the first connection with the person, whatever, however you do that, whether it's by networking event or you go to a conference or whatever it might be, you're looking for something that's going to be in it for them. But it's all about asking them questions. So it's almost like a dating game, really. But
Mm.
it is asking people questions about them or finding something that is relevant to them, whether it's business associated or something outside, which is it can be brought in. Could be sports, it could be other facets around that. Could be absolutely anything. Obviously, on the phone, when you're doing a cold call, it's slightly different because you have to get that instant connection with them. So it resonates, and then you can actually build a rapport with them and build that trust. And then you can have the chit chat. But there's certain levels that you actually have to go to build that connection with the other person.
So there is, Jason, and yes, there's things you can learn, right? There's absolutely things you can learn. But what I always say, if you're a nice person, that when you care about other people, these things are what you should do naturally.
Yeah,
And again,
yeah.
but here's the thing, Jason, people got so caught up in their own bubble, their own, if they have targets, it's all about getting the sale, getting the sale, getting the sale. They don't necessarily understand to play the long game, build relationships. When you build relationships, rapport and trust, the consequence of that is good long-term relationships and
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah.
And whether it may not be a sale with them, Jason, but if you build a good relationship with somebody, they'll point you to someone who needs your services, even if they don't. Because this has happened to me so many times. And I always go back to my dad. When I was younger, my dad was a jeweler, as I've said before. And I
Mm.
used to watch him and I didn't really understand what he was doing at the time. And then I did sales courses. And I remember because when I started teaching sales, even though I was teaching process, I said, I better understand the lingo and what people are talking about and whatever. And when they were talking about, again, building rapport and, you know, opening conversations with them and allowing them invite you to talk about what they want before you push yourself on them. And I'm going, my dad did that. And then they talk about something else. And I was going, my dad did that. And then I realized, well, my dad did all that because he was a good guy. He cared about their problems became his problems, Jason. He didn't care.
Mm.
Obviously, he wanted to sell, but his goal was to look after his potential customer as best as he could with the right article at the right price. He never oversold somebody because he always wanted people to walk away knowing they were happy.
Mm. One thing is smile. It's so it's so wonderful. It's so easy.
Mm.
It's an obvious, so obvious for us to do. But once you smile, you become open, and then if you have open body language, you become open to others. Just a couple of things that you could possibly do just to make it. Some people really struggle with this part. Some people are really sort of internal. They're not as sociable as others. Some people are outgoing. Some people are not as outgoing. But it is one of those things that you have to just get over. If you're in sales, something that you definitely have to do. It's you have to have maybe the small chit chat, maybe find something that's gonna. I when I was out with my first mentor when I was in London many years ago, my mentor just said, look, spark a conversation off about anything. Look, when you're going into a building or you're making a cold call and you're physically going into a place, look around, look at the pictures, look at something on the wall, look at something that you can spark a conversation off. Then you build the trust and connection, and you build the conversation up from there. I've never really had a problem with that myself, but I know when I've run courses, it's one of the first things that you have to start doing is how can you build rapport with the other person. And I always like to get someone else talking about someone else to get a conversation going, and that will spark up a conversation. So lots of different things you can do, but again, it's practice. It's practice, 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 practice.
And Jason, what you said is really important because like it's so important. Like when people ask me how I'm doing, I'll be very honest with them, Jason. As you know, I'm training for a marathon at the moment. I will if people ask me how you getting on, I say, well, I'm very busy at the moment. Work is busy, training for a
Mm.
marathon. So I'm at that long run stage. And I'll tell them, I'll open up myself. To your point, I'll open up myself because maybe something will resonate with them. But I do some running too, and even that's it's funny, Jason. Even when we met, when we
Yeah.
started knowing each other, we discovered we both liked running. And I know it took me a year to get me up to the hills, right? But you got me there. But it's amazing. We started building a commonality and a relationship through a common
Yeah.
activity, which was running, and obviously business too, the business element as well.
Hmm.
And that's how you build rapport because people, in order for people to know something, you have to tell them something, right? And so I always believe I'll be proactive in that. I will tell them whatever I can about me in a short space of time. And something like, especially something to do with family, friends, sports, what I like, interest,
Hmm.
something will resonate with somebody because I love finding out about people, Jason. I love asking questions because I love to find people that we can chat on the same level with things. And I've kept in touch with many clients over the years outside of business work because we have commonalities. We're into different sports.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that I've always consciously do is keep in touch with old clients, even old employees, uh, just to keep in contact with what they're doing. I'm friends with a lot of people like that. This is rapport is also good as a sales manager and as a sales leader, as a managing director, you need to understand a little bit about your team, what they do, what their interests are, what their motivations are. And the only way to do that is ask them questions, be interested in them. Once you're interested in them, then your team, your workforce, your sales force is then a little bit more motivated and a little bit more supportive about you as well. So there's commonalities in there. There's a bit more camaraderie in there, a bit more motivation, a bit more. I really want to be working with this sales
Hmm.
organization because it's going to help me drive forward. So it is with customers, but it's also with internal stakeholders as well within your organization, and obviously the organization that you're trying to get in front of.
Yeah, and that's it, Jason. And then, like, there's different, obviously, there's different steps in the journey of building rapport. We talked
Mhm.
about the chit chat, the open conversations, the open body language, the verbal, the non-verbal, everything about playing your cards, showing your cards to your colleague or prospect or whatever it is. But then when you get onto the business element, James and or
Mhm.
Jason, especially from a sales perspective, like a lot of people like to jump in and say, oh yeah, we're great at this. This is
Yeah.
features. These are the benefits. This is what we do. No, it's about listening. Their pains become your pains, Jason. You listen to them. You let them get things off their chest. And if you have something of value to add where you can support, come in, because again, that's how you build rapport. They have a pain, you can help solve their pain, you can work together for the pain relief and be the partners in whatever that pain is. But it takes time, Jason. You have to listen. And you know, Jason, better than anyone, if you get one element wrong along that journey, you've lost somebody. And that is so easy to do when you're self-centered. But again, Jason, I can't overemphasize the importance of being other people centered when it comes to that. Treat them like family, treat them how you would like to be treated or how you would treat family,
Mm.
in a caring manner to ensure they see you as someone who can help them.
Another thing is, while you're speaking, I'm not thinking of questions to ask you. What I'm listening is I'm listening with intent to everything that you've said. And I might just say, oh, could you just remind me about blah, 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 and just suggest, just repurpose what you've just said. Proper listening, proper understanding, proper. So, look, I've just heard what you've said. Now I'm just going to repeat it back to
Yeah,
you
it's clarification.
in their
That's the
words. Yeah,
clarification. So this is what I think you said. Is this correct?
yeah.
So what I'm getting from you is, am I correct? And
Mm.
that's getting the clarification. So they know, first of all, Jason, and this is a very subconscious thing, they know you are listening to them. And whether they realize it or not, that ticks a box in their brain, right? And they go, okay, yeah, this person is listening. And then you take it to the next step, because again, Jason, everything to move forward with relationships, it's about likability, and that's where the commonalities play a big part, the likability. And then, like, obviously there's other non-verbal skills like the
Mm.
mirroring of people. And again, Jason, if you're naturally in sync with people, you mirror naturally.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be forced, it shouldn't be used in a manipulative fashion, it should be used naturally, because that's the way. If you're talking to a friend about something, you will naturally do that. It's a subconscious thing, you just go into that state. And that's very important. Do you ever walk away, Jason, from someone and you go, I just don't know about that person, I
yeah,
just don't know
yeah.
why, I just, there's nothing they said or did, they seem like a nice guy, but you just didn't build that rapport. That is the non-verbal and the paraverbal things that could have
Yep.
happened in that conversation, that we're not in the same frequency as you.
Something that you should always do is people watching. And if you're ever in a shopping center and you're looking down at a cafe or whatever, you would notice the people that are in rapport and the people that aren't in rapport. Or if you go to a restaurant, as an example, and you're looking around and you see the people that they're doing it naturally, they're doing it all unconsciously. When you force it, and I'm gonna have to mirror that person, I'm gonna have to do this, that, and the other. It's very contrived. It's People will know that you're putting it on that and trying to match you and trying to do the tonality. when you forget all of that and just relax into it and make it all organic, you'll be in tune with the other person. And it's just so good once you are in tune with the other person and they respect you and you respect them, and you're having a good conversation, you're building the trust, you're building the credibility, then you're finding out a little bit more about their business, and then you're creating that organic approach where you're both in synchronization and it's the right thing to do, and you get that good feeling, that good gut feeling as well. Thank you, Matthew Kilkenny. The art of listening is so important in all relations. Well said, guys.
Yeah, and Matthew's a guy that's doing a lot of listening to a lot of very interesting people at the moment, and he's building his own little fort and of team to do all things Web3, and he's working. He's very motivated at doing all this, so he's a good guy to understand these listening skills. Thank you, Matthew, and but everything what you said, Jason, and like even when you have that initial conversation, and then there's going to be multiple touch points. If you tell me something about something you do or your children, or there was an occasion, a family occasion on, the next time I meet you, I should be interested in asking you that question if I'm genuinely interested in you as a person. And again, if the relationship is natural and it's not forced, you will actually remember those stuff because it left an impact with you. But again, these are things that I used to see my dad do, but he would ask them out of care. It's not because he wrote on the back of a business card. Now, I've often done that in the past, Jason, when I was doing serial networking, just to be sure. But he would remember naturally because he cared about that other person and he wanted to hear an update. Because if you, again, it's all about, and I can't emphasize this enough, being other people centered.
Whether you put that onto a CRM after you've spoken to that customer, you put all the details in there, they go, oh, they're going to a wedding or whatever's happening in their lives. I would always write that in just so I can remember the next time I speak to them. If it is a month or 2 months down the line, go, hey Shay, how's your training going? How did you do the marathon? How'd you get on the marathon, Shay? Etc. For me, it would be, how's my injury going? Oh, yeah, it's still there.
Yeah.
But it's still, we can still pick up. Oh, yeah, I had an injury a little while ago, but you're building the personal stuff in there, and you can be a little bit vulnerable as well. Not too vulnerable, but as long as you're just being a human,
it's
that's
all
all
about
people
being
want to
human.
see. Yeah.
And Dan Pink has a great book. I don't know if you've heard of Dan Pink. And
I have.
he's a very well educated, very articulated in what he says, and he's like he's really digs deep into everything he researches. I think he did a lot of speech writing for the president of the USA at one stage. But he really, whatever he talks about, he knows, right? But he has this book. I've followed him a lot about building teams, and he has some really good models. But he has a book called "To Sell Is Human," right? And I'd advise anyone to read it. And what he talks about, again, it's not the art of selling; it's about building relationships. And he goes, even when you go back to the old day when you were doing the door-to-door sales, when you're doing the encyclopedias, it's the people who remember the name of the person, the family, the dog. It's those people who always did well and just wanted to chat. It's not the people who were just trying to sell and give deals and talk about features. It's the people who talked about anything but what they were trying to sell. And that's been proven many times over.
Another key point in there is be good to every single person you meet within that organization, from the receptionist, the caretakers, all the way through, because you make an impact all the way through to meeting the actual person when you actually physically meet them in the real world. I would take due care and attention to say hello to every single person along the way and strut off a conversation. Because once you come into that organization, they go, oh, Jason, I remember you from last time. That is people focused. That is looking after every single person in the organization, as opposed to the key decision maker. But it reflects about you as an individual when you do that. It makes so much of an impact.
Well, I'm going to tell you a story, Jason. This is going back a number of years now. I had a chance to do a nice bit of work with a certain company that was on my radar, and I was building a proposal, and it was quite difficult. It was quite detailed. There was a phenomenal amount of back and forth. And eventually I just said to the guy I was planning to do work with, let's go out for a bit of food and just trash it out. Right. And so I went out for a bit of food, Jason, and I came out of that dinner not wanting to do business with that person because how that person treated the waiter who actually did nothing wrong. Jason told me everything about what I needed to know about that person.
Yeah.
And even certain comments that that person said, because that person felt they were better than that person. And I decided that's not the type of person I want to do business with. And also, Jason, I knew that person possibly would have made my life very, very difficult with
Yeah.
that. And I've learned the hard way in the past and not to do business. So it's a two-way street, Jason.
It
It's not
is. Yeah.
about, but it's, to your point, it's how people treat people, which is a very important to me.
Yeah, you treat people how you want to be treated yourself, but if they don't respect that and it's a two-way street, then there's no point doing business there. As much as you might be under pressure, you might be under stress, but you have to match your own what goes on inside yourself as well. So there is that balance there as well. So look, we hit the witching hour again.
Yeah,
We
we're
hit
out of time. These conversations fly, Jason. We could keep talking. As we say in Ireland, we could talk for Ireland on certain things. And but look, if we were to close it off, Jason, with one or possibly 1.5 comments or two, what would you say?
just relax. People are people. You can get on with some people, you can't get on with others, but make sure you make a connection of whatever it might be. Smile, always look into the eyes. Just relax. That's what I always say. Just be using and utilizing people skills, and that's what it is.
Yeah, very good. And the only thing I would add to that, Jason, is along with being other people centered, focus on the relationship. Like really go in to the situation to work and focus on a relationship, not the sale. The sale will come if you do the homework and the groundwork right with the person, because people are people, Jason, and that's who people will do business with, people they trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Well, look, thanks everyone. Thanks to everyone who commented, Matthew and Caroline. Thank you very much. And we'll see you again at the same time for another subject in the whole world of the system side to sales. Thank you, everyone, and have a good
Take
day.
care.
Bye-bye.